This is a certified
Bob Sponge 10.
classic.
Hey there, gamers and gamettes. Today I'm going to be reading and I'm going to be making an audio essay of an essay that I wrote sophomore year of college. And what we had to do is we had to pick a controversial topic and write about it. So I picked hunting because I hunt, and so here we go. It's 8 pages long, double spaced. Why hunting benefits the world. Hunting has been a means by which humans acquiring food, I guess that's a typo, for thousands of years, and in recent times has been viewed as more of a hobby, especially in the Western world. Many people argue that hunting has no place in modern society since people now use farm animals for most of their meat. However, hunting entails much more than simply killing an animal and eating it. While some would say that hunting is unnecessary and inhumane, hunting actually provides a major benefit to the ecosystem and to humanity. Mankind has hunted throughout their entire history. For the early humans, a tribe's chances of survival depended on their ability to hunt. As weapons and tactics have advanced, wildlife populations were unable to keep up with the demands of the hunters. According to the National Park Service, the issue got worse and worse throughout the 1800s, particularly in America. Without any kind of regulation, thousands of species of wildlife would soon be facing extinction by the start of the 20th century. Conservation efforts consisting of preserving wild habitats and protecting and regulating wildlife populations. According to the National Park Service, one of the earliest and most prominent conservationists was Theodore Roosevelt, who was also an avid hunter. When he spent time out west hunting big game, he saw Yosemite National Park, calling it a great solemn cathedral, far vaster and more beautiful than any built by the hand of man. He also saw hordes of big game wiped out by hunters because there were no regulations in place to protect them from being slaughtered. He cared about the wildlife populations and realized that if all the animals were slaughtered by his generation, there would be nothing left for future generations to hunt. If the wild areas he cared about were wiped out by land developers, there would be no natural beauty left for anyone to enjoy. When he became president, he made conservation one of his top priorities. During his 8 years as president, Roosevelt set aside 230 million acres of public lands for use as protected wildlife areas, including 6 national parks. Thanks to the lands he protected and the ideas he introduced regarding conservation, America has managed to recover their wildlife populations, and today they are closely monitored and properly regulated so that the environment can stay balanced and function the way it's supposed to. Our country's trend in the right direction when it comes to taking care of the environment might never have happened if Teddy Roosevelt had not discovered the natural beauty and dwindling wildlife populations on his hunting trip out west. An avid hunter started the conservation movement in America. Hunters aid conservation by adding funds to the budget of the organizations that run and manage conservation efforts. The way this happens is through a gun tax, which hunters requested in 1937, according to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. This 11% tax applies to guns, bullets, bows, and arrows, with all the tax revenue going toward conservation. The gun tax brings in $371 million a year for conservation. Including any additional donations that hunters make, they end up contributing more than $1.6 billion a year for conservation programs. No one gives more. This money is used to maintain and preserve all sorts of natural areas, from national parks to nature preserves. It pays for park rangers, game wardens, cleanup projects, or anything else that these organizations need in order to do their best work and protect the ecosystem from being destroyed by the public. It also goes toward paying for new land preserves. According to Catherine Roy, the 91-acre Oak Hill Wildlife Management Area in Chesterfield was purchased this year with funds from license stamps hunters must have in Massachusetts. The reason hunters contribute so much money every year to these wildlife organizations is because they are highly motivated to protect the land they use as a vital resource. Hunters use the land not only for the animals it provides, but also for the peace and quiet it provides. For many people, the thing that makes hunting so appealing is the fact that a hunter can wake up early and watch the sunrise while surrounded by nature with no distractions. Many people feel that the best way to connect with God would be to connect with His creation, so being in nature has the potential to be a religious experience as well. One could argue that there are plenty of outdoor activities people can participate in to be close to nature without having to kill something. While this is true, there is a difference between being in nature and participating in nature, which hunting allows people to do better than anything else could. It allows people to really participate in the natural order of the wild. According to Jan Dizzard, professor of American culture at Amherst College, almost all hunters say, in one way or another, that they hunt in order to experience nature directly as a participant, not simply a spectator. The concept of a person killing an animal on their own, then eating it the same night, is as old as mankind itself. It also allows people to have a greater respect for the food they eat because they saw their meal when it was alive. When someone buys beef from Walmart, they are not seeing the cow the beef comes from. They see only the final product and therefore can't appreciate what that beef used to be. They are more likely to take their meat for granted without acknowledging the life that had to end in order for that meat to become available to them. Besides all the mental and spiritual benefits that hunting can bring, there are many health benefits as well. Everything involved in the hunting process can end up being quite a workout because, according to Crystal Lombardo, chief editor of Vitana, it requires individuals to hike into wooded areas, set up a stand, camp, or blind, and endure sometimes difficult conditions. It is a unique way to get personal exercise, especially since dietary options are limited while hunting. Any sort of movement someone would normally make in the woods is made much more difficult by layers of bulky clothing and a gun slung over his shoulder. Add up everything that needs to be done before the hunt even begins, like hiking to the spot where the stand or blind is, and the hunters are burning a lot of calories. A major health movement in the 21st century has been the locavore movement, which means that people are placing a higher emphasis on eating foods found locally. They do this not only to try to be healthy, but also as a way of plugging into their communities. And those that try to buy local are seeing hunting as a way to expand that commitment. Another major movement has been the importance placed on eating only organic foods. The popularity of whole foods is a testament to how many people want to eat organically. There has been a growing discomfort with industrial farming and food safety, with all the growth hormones and antibiotics that are being injected into livestock these days. There is really only one way for a person to guarantee that the meat they are eating is local and organic, which is to see it and kill it themselves. There are plenty of companies that claim to have all natural meat with no antioxidants, growth hormones, or anything else, but anyone can put a sticker on the package and claim whatever they want. According to Catherine Harmon of Time magazine, the Animal Welfare Institute spent 3 years requesting documentation from the USDA about companies that boast their animals are well cared for or raised in accordance with high environmental standards. The USDA failed to supply documentation supporting these claims for 20 of the 25 products AWI investigated. Another reason wild meat is healthier is because of its actual nutritional value. The meat of almost any wild animal is extremely lean with very little fat. It is also less likely to have diseases in it than a regular farm animal would, since many of these commercial farms pack animals into their feeding stations like a can of sardines, whereas wild animals spend their whole lives roaming free with plenty of space and fresh air. Animal populations have benefited greatly from the policies and precedents that Teddy Roosevelt set forth over 100 years ago. Because of the conservation efforts that hunters directly fund, wild game populations have skyrocketed in America over the past 100+ years. In 1900, only 500,000 white-tailed deer remained in America. Thanks to conservation work spearheaded by hunters, today there are more than 32 million. Also, in 1901, few ducks remained. Thanks to hunters' efforts to restore and conserve wetlands, today there are more than 44 million. The reason these animal populations have grown the way that they have is because they are now hunted in a responsible and sustainable way. Hunting keeps the animal populations at a healthy level. According to Khan Academy, something that regularly occurs in nature is a cycle of growing and shrinking populations for each particular species, and each cycle is connected to the cycle of the other species. The animal population will find an area that suits their needs pretty well, so they all settle there, similar to the way human cities are born. The population reproduces and grows in number because the land is still able to sustain more animals. Eventually, the environment reaches its capacity and it can no longer support any more animals of that species, but the animals don't realize that. They keep reproducing and putting more and more strain on the environment until resources run out. This leads to a massive die-off because there are not enough resources to go around. This also hurts every other animal population that relied on that one to survive, so their predators die off too. Then the environment eventually recovers and the cycle begins again. However, this is not ideal for animals or hunters, so hunters are allowed to bag a certain number each year to keep the populations in check. A lot of research goes into how the animal populations are doing in each area and what needs to be adjusted to make sure the numbers stay at a healthy and sustainable level. One way to do this is to manipulate the hunting seasons. According to Steve Wilson of the West Virginia Conservation Academy, the hunting seasons are not consistent from year to year. They fluctuate depending on how the animal populations are reacting. The seasons are determined by natural resource commissions of each state individually. If there are too many animals in an area, hunting season is elongated for that area. If there are too few, the season is shortened. Another way animal populations Another way animal populations benefit from hunting is the fact that they are able to avoid humans. When resources run thin, animals are pushed to go places they normally would not go to try and find food, such as cities and suburbs, which endangers both animals and people. It leads to raccoons living in dumpsters, bears wandering into people's yards, and deer getting hit by cars. These interactions have deadly implications for both man and animals because, according to Crystal Lombardo, automotive collisions with deer cause an estimated 200 deaths every year. Keeping wild animals out of society also reduces disease, as a recent 13-year-old study involving two Connecticut towns found that the use of hunters to reduce the number of deer slashed tick abundance by 76% and resulted in 80% fewer cases of Lyme disease reported by the town's residents. Any animal that is killed in an accidental interaction is much more likely to suffer for a long time than if it was hunted and killed instantly. Probably the most controversial aspect of hunting is the practice of trophy hunting, especially in Africa. Trophy hunting is when a hunter kills a large or rare animal purely for sport with the intention of using its head or body as a trophy. Many people believe that paid trophy hunts are the reason so many species in Africa are endangered, when in reality, trophy hunting plays a big role in why these species are still around at all. Poachers and habitat loss are the two biggest threats to large African mammals right now. Combating these problems requires a lot of money. African governments cannot afford to pay for these efforts on their own because they have to worry about taking care of their own citizens first. Because of this, some countries have turned to trophy hunting as a way to fund conservation efforts. According to Jason G. Goldman of Conservation Magazine, in an effort to boost conservation, both Namibia and South Africa are legally permitted to sell 5 permits for the hunting of adult male black rhinos each year, with each one of them selling for $350,000. While selling the rights to hunt and kill endangered species may seem counterproductive, the results speak for themselves. It actually encourages private landowners to introduce wildlife that is in high demand. For example, the legalization of white rhinoceros hunting in South Africa motivated private landowners to reintroduce the species onto their lands. As a result, the country saw an increase in white rhinos from fewer than 100 individuals to more than 11,000, even while a limited number were killed as trophies. While these populations are largely declining worldwide, they are thriving in countries that allow trophy hunting. Compare these numbers to the numbers of elephants in Kenya, which outlawed trophy hunting in 1977. Kenya accounted for more than 15% of all illegal ivory seizure in Africa over the past 2 decades because the Kenyan elephant population fell precipitously between 1973 and 2013. While the morality of killing animals purely for sport might be questionable, these trophy hunts are proven to aid the conservation of African wildlife. Without them, there is no money to pay for a defense to the poachers which are driving these animals to extinction. In conclusion, hunting is beneficial to humans because it promotes good health and a connection to nature. It benefits animals because it keeps their populations at a healthy level and provides a good source of revenue to fund conservation efforts. Hunting also cuts down on human and wild animal interactions, which is good for both parties. The end. So, yeah, that's my paper about hunting. I'm out of breath. Bye.